And welcome to Conservative Talk.
Are we doomed to default?
And Biden has sold us out to China yet again.
And Buck's been our ear for the last couple of months trying to tell us that Hunter Biden's ex is going to get him locked up before the Republicans do.
His ex-stripper mistress.
Can't wait for the conspiracy corner.
And welcome to Conservative Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we'd like to remind our subservient folks out there to make sure that you are hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that you see that we release on any of the platforms that we are on, as well as we demand and require that you hit the subscribe button. If you do not, you will be punished. We also have instituted a mandate that you go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit the sponsor tab. If you do not, you again will be punished. And we require this because Jamie and I need help with getting this message out and continuing to really put this broadcast out and get this information out to our, we'll call them our devoted subjects. So with that in mind, Jamie, would you care to give us your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. Don't forget it. We got to get liberal news out of Northwest Georgia, and it continues to start with you boycotting hometown headlines.
Absolutely. So we also want to take a quick moment to recognize our affiliates and say thank you. So our first one being Net News Network. You can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. It is a local grassroots compilation of newscast producers that really give you an on-the-ground, first-hand perspective of things going on in their areas. So if you want a good idea of what's going on in several locations throughout the United States, make sure you are checking out Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First, the premier America First organization. It's also dubbed Americans for Trump, or excuse me, Veterans for Trump. It's kind of a Veterans for America First / Veterans for Trump, more or less. That's how it's going with that. And they really push a lot of their policy platforms through their media arm, and that is Vet Voice. So make sure you are looking for Vet Voice on every major social media platform. So Jamie, with that, how about let's jump right into it.
June 1st. June 1st.
Will Uncle Sam run out of money? According to our Treasury Secretary, we will.
So Yellen says that we will run out of money on June 1st if they don't push the debt ceiling. The problem is that this has been used as a scare tactic for a long time to scare people into bipartisan. And as a semi laissez-faire person, I'm kind of like saying to the Republicans, double down now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they don't do it, if they're going to hold such a strong foot in the door on spending, it's time to let the market crash.
Well, I wouldn't say
it's time to let the market crash.
Let the market crash so much. I would be more of hold your stance, because we all know that at no point in time is the federal government going to allow the United States to actually default on its debts.
Well, so that's funny you mentioned that, right? Because there's been a lot of talks about the 14th Amendment, and I'm the type of person who also believes that I don't know how any entity, any sovereign that prints its own money can never have enough money, right? Because technically they make up the rules for how the money functions inside their country. Now, granted, there are financial principles and accounting principles that are supposed to be applied around the world, but we see it all the time. And, speaking of a foe that we're going to talk about in a little while, China is the worst abuser of it.
Yes.
So I find it very interesting that China's best friend is now going into the same kind of methodology of policy when it comes to holding in and digging in his heels instead of reducing spending.
And he said, and to give him credit, although I will say this credit is very minuscule and very lacking in a sense, but credit nonetheless, he has, or at least for this rhetoric that he's put out. He said that he will not use the 14th Amendment to essentially raise the debt limit, simply because of the fact that if he does use it, it would be tied up in litigation for so long that it really would not be effective in any way for him using it. So as a political strategy, if that's the case, it's a fair strategy.
That's how that's how he keeps that's how he keeps the 12% approval rating that he has right now,
more or less.
You know what I mean? Is
on the left side, but yeah.
You know, like, is if he'd have said what the Democrats want him to do, then
if he'd have said what the Democrats want him to do, then we'd have been bankrupt 2 years ago.
Correct. Now, I will say this: I like the strings attached that the Republicans have put up there.
Mm-hmm. And it's the Limit, Save, and Grow Act.
Yeah, in the Limit, Save, and Grow Act, it talks about other responsibilities on top of SNAP. It talks about a freeze on governmental spending, taking it back to different, like I think it was like 2002, which is not really that much spending.
So what it would do is it freezes the spending level, spending cap at the 20. It raises the debt limit by 1.5 trillion, and then it freezes spending for the federal institutions at the 2022 level, which, in all honesty, was historic spending levels even after coming out of COVID and a pandemic. And then it also institutes a 1% growth on the ability for the federal government to be able to spend more money over the next decade. So it really lowers the bar for what any administration could really push and pursue in spending more money than what we are willing to shell out for.
Here's the only problem I have with it. I'm tired of the federal government passing things that they do not plan on holding to. And
that's a fair point.
And at 1.5 trillion, I see that all this does is kick the can down the road again. We still won't have a balanced budget. And the only thing that we're going to get out of it is they'll have the same conversation in December like they did the last time we reached the debt ceiling. And then they'll wait until it's a non-election year and they kick it up another 10, 15 trillion dollars. And then they wait till another election cycle gets ready for the next presidential election. And then they'll go, here we are again.
Have I told you lately just how much I love you? that entire argument was so true to my heart right there. It was
like, at what point are, like, look, when I balance my budget, I don't like it either. You know what I mean? Sometimes I spend more than I should, and that means I got to cut back on something else. And then when I dig out of that hole, I got to, make sure I cut back in the long term to replace what I misstepped on.
Mm-hmm.
Why do average citizens have to do it? Why do local governments have to do it? Why do states have to do it? But at the federal government, we just ignore the fact that they don't do it, and then gripe and complain when we say that they, they print the money, so they should be able to do whatever they want.
Because campaigns are won and lost on this issue.
Literally.
I mean, this is nothing more than campaign rhetoric to be used next year. It's the fact, and don't get me wrong, I am beyond happy that they are willing to at least freeze the spending limit to the previous year so it can't go up more. Okay, I understand that we have borrowed so much money and now we need to raise the national debt limit in order to be able to pay for what we've already taken out. I will say, though, we could do that by cutting a lot of the government programs that are out there. There's actually a lot of fear that's been raised out of that issue as well, because you see the White House coming out and saying that, well, with this effort that they're wanting to do with capping spending and cutting all of these benefits and everything like that, you're going to see Social Security getting slashed. You're going to see veterans programs being slashed. You're going to see all this other stuff being cut. But the House Appropriations chairman has already come out and said, No, like those are not on the table. We're going to be cutting your primary issues that you ran on, that you have bloated our federal government with beyond recognition. Those are the issues that we're going to be cutting out. All of this needless fat that you put onto us, that our taxpayers are going to be paying for the rest of their lives.
Private matters that the federal government should not be involved in.
Exactly.
There should be no reason for what you can believe whatever you want to. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue, right? When it comes to this point that I'm going to make right here. The federal government should not be sending money to any medical facility, any individual, if they're having some whatever male-female crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't know who you are, go to a therapist. Don't ask the federal government for money.
Or do what they used to do in the old days and take a couple of days out in the woods. Figure it out real fast.
Figure it out. Like, that's it. You know, when I need to go find myself,
careful there.
I go camping. When I realize, someone's heard me say this story before. When I'm trying to grill a frog that I caught on my pocket knife over an open fire, that's when I realize I've been in the woods too long, and it's time for me to go back to civilization for a little while. But it clears your head.
it does put a new perspective in your mind.
It puts a new perspective in your mind, and you're like, you know what? All those things that I was worried about don't mean anything. Now, granted, it takes about 9 days for me of grubbage and food to where I get so lost where like, frog, and stab it. You know what I'm saying? Then gut it and then cook me some frog legs. But
I will say, around this area, that is very possible.
Rabbit hole, right? I will never forget. I was somewhere between 19 and 21 years old, right? So a decade ago.
Dating yourself.
Yeah, I know.
You say the first thing, I'm going to gut you.
Buddy of mine was at Berry College, and we went to hang out with some of his friends off on Horse Leg in a house that they were renting. And I had a little bit too much shine, okay, because we were introducing him to the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had a little bit too much shine, and me and another buddy that tall red-headed guy, were sitting by a fire. And I looked down and saw this frog come by, whipped out my pocket knife, and I stabbed it, and I gutted it right there, and I stuck it right back through its mouth, you know what I mean? And I started grilling me some frog legs. And I kid you not, I have no idea where these kids were from. That's why I always share this story. I have no idea where these kids are from. They looked at me and they said, "You must be a local, aren't you?"
Fair point.
Well,
fair point.
I'm proud of it,
Hey, as the old song goes, I can run a trot line, I can skin a buck deer, and a country boy will survive.
We'll survive. We'll survive. But anyway, back on topic.
Yes. So we had just finished up talking going into a little bit about how what the Republicans bill that passed out of the House, what it essentially said that the federal government was going to have to do under the Biden administration. Now, they have been having some of these negotiations and talks as of late. And after the last meeting between McCarthy and Biden, McCarthy actually came back out and said that Biden and his administration have dug their heels in on the spending issue, whether or not that was going to be attached to the ability to raise or lower the debt limit. They've said that since we have already spent the money or borrowed the money and spent it, that affects our debt, we are obligated to raise the debt limit. Well, funny thing about that is they no longer control the House, and the House controls the purse strings. So the issue there at hand is, well, the House has said we're tightening the purse strings. So if you want us to raise the debt limit, you're going to have to agree to these spending cuts.
Yep.
And in all honesty, it's what the Constitution lays out and what it actually says that we should be doing. They have countered with, okay, we're good with freezing the spending levels to the current levels that they were last year, but we're not going to do the decade-long 1% increase. We're only interested in doing a 1 to 2 year long increase as far as spending levels.
I wonder why.
Well, yeah, it's the 24 election.
Mhm.
They're thinking that they're going to win, so they don't want to agree to not increasing the spending levels if they win the presidential election, to where
Same
they
bleep,
come out and
different
blow
day.
it out.
Same bleep, different day.
Exactly. They sincerely see this this House administration, or the Republican administration that's overseeing the House right now, as transitory. Like it's only there for a brief moment in time. It's something that they're going to have to put up with for a year or two, and then they'll move on to blowing out all the American savings accounts that they possibly can.
Because they've already done that. And
Yeah.
here's the real problem for me, right? Because the three main the underbelly of our American economy is insurance, lending, construction. When you really start thinking about trickling down from everything kind of trickles down from there. Businesses will grow their businesses. They want to build new business. They want to build new offices. They want to build out different things. That all is trickled out to everyday middle class people, primarily through construction, and then it goes down from there. Because this administration refused to acknowledge that we're in a recession and continues to just add to the deficit instead of trying to correct it, what's going to happen is we'll stop the debt we'll stop the cap. We won't increase it. The market will go down, construction will go down, land value will go down, and then you can reset the middle class. What they don't want to happen is a reset and a restart of the middle class, because the more people that they make poor, the more justification that they have for their reckless spending, for their inconsistent policies, for their big socialist program push, because it then puts the emotional factor in people of woe is me. I need the government. And so the whole Democratic model goes against everything that we should be trying to correct in our economic atmosphere.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with you on that one. The fact that by killing the middle class with this, it really puts a lot of the reliance back on to the federal government and kills the American spirit and the American dream altogether, because nobody is able to make anything better of themselves by pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, when you have to rely on the federal government for help and assistance in doing that. It kills the American dream altogether.
Because think about what all, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I say construction is that next layer, right? Because lending is how we build. We leverage that out. Companies leverage that out whenever they go in, and all that is capital growth. So as a company grows to sell products, they need more space, or they need to find an innovative way of reconstructing the space that they're in. They hire construction crews to come in and do that on various levels. That then trickles out through construction, because now their employees are getting paid more because they're being able to get more and hire more. So more people are employed, which means more people can go purchase a larger house or go purchase their first home or whatever level that they're at. All of that still increases lending, because now there are more people who are going in to get a loan. And then
they're able to offer more through the loans because the interest rate isn't jacked up so high.
Which is the next, which is a very good part of this too, that I don't think they talk about too much. And it's interesting that Yellen is the one who's sitting here trying to say, raise the debt ceiling, because we know what the Fed's going to do. Because most people forget, and we have to remind them, they're two separate entities, which is why she's worried about them raising it. If they don't raise it, they're going to hike interest rates again, because it's in the best interest of the Federal Reserve to crash the market. We have not had a recession. Under fractional banking, there should be one roughly every 10 years, and we've skipped the last, almost 2. So the moment that rates hike again, now we're in an even bigger problem, because instead of the federal government trying to reset everything, now those who are just barely made over the poverty line for the first time are going to get hit. And those who are leveraged too high already are going to fall even further, which is why people don't think of like all of this crux. It is part of the reason why people started freaking out when Signature Bank and First Citizen and who all of them started to fail or look at they were already over leveraged above 60% of their market, which means this, like 65% of the money that it says on their balance sheet inside the account was not in the bank. You know what I mean? That's literally like saying we have $1 million on paper, but actually in the bank, I only got about 450,000. You know what I mean? So when someone calls in or someone says, "Hey, I can't pay my interest right now," that doesn't just affect the person.
Mm-hmm.
That affects everyone who's a part of that bank. So before we turn into Greece,
that's a hell of a yikes. I mean, they literally had rioting in the streets. They were burning buildings. Well, we've had that too. But instead of quote unquote social justice like they were doing it here, they were doing it for bread over there.
Can you imagine if we reach the point? Because here's the other thing I don't think a lot of people understand either, right? The top 6 biggest banks, right? And we house one of them, the 6th largest one here in Georgia. They'll just move. They have the capital, like Goldman Sachs, the largest bank. Goldman Sachs is one of the only ones who hadn't been affected in the last 2 recessions, and it's because they trim fat.
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Hey, I see something coming 10, 15 years down the road. I'm going to fire 50,000 people across the world right now, so I can load up on cash." But when you have regional banks that are still trying to build their brand, they don't have that ability, and then they get over leveraged or a little ambitious. We all get a little over leveraged, but
this isn't confession time, Jamie. But anyway, they have said that there may potentially be an agreement that may be able to be reached within the next week or so, or at least by the first of when Janet Yellen's crisis deadline has, as she's established it. Although in speaking with other folks that I have outside the circles, again, they keep financial abilities in reserve for this issue coming up. And the only person that has actually said June 1st is Janet Yellen. And who knows whether or not that's the actual date that we would run out of, or a date that is the hard red line in the sand. But again, that's the only thing that we know, because that's who is the one that is supposed to be telling us this information.
This is one of those moments where Brian Pritchard goes, "Jamie, just say whatever you're thinking and stop pausing." And I will say it like this. I think it's key that everyone go look up when the next Fed meeting is.
It's an interesting point.
And then we will be more understanding about why June 1st is a hard deadline, even though the balance sheet doesn't show it.
You heard it here first. So with that in mind, we do like to take a moment to remind our subservient minions out there to make sure they are hitting the like button and the share button on anything that they see that we produce and put out on any of our platforms, as well as hitting the subscribe button. You are required to do this. This is a task that you must perform in your everyday life. We also encourage our I've used subservient minions.
Our friends.
We're going to call them our political serfs. There we go. That's the perfect terminology.
No.
Our political serfs. To go to our website at conservativestalk.org and become a sponsor today, because you will be directly contributing towards Jamie and I eventually one of these days taking over the world and making sure that everything that we do say in these episodes comes true. So with that, let's move on to our next topic, and that is Biden has yet again sold us out to his best friends over in the commie world over there, China.
Yeah, because Biden still refuses to let American innovation move forward when it comes to the solar panel world.
So what we're referring to is Biden vetoed a bipartisan resolution that would have lifted his executive action memorandum or his executive action that he took to institute a 24-month moratorium on the ability to collect tariffs on any Chinese-made solar panels. And this moratorium or this executive action actually came a couple of months after the Department of Commerce had put out a report or really detailed a lot of how the Chinese government has been sending solar panels through other countries in order to circumvent the U.S. tariff that had been instituted against Chinese-made solar panels. So they were really circumventing them. So Biden said, okay, well, I'm going to need my $10 million from them, and I got to pay for it somehow. So we're just going to get it to where anybody in the green energy industry can send anything straight to the U.S., and we're not going to worry about anything like that. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to sign the infrastructure care package that pours in trillions of American dollars into these green initiatives to boost the American innovation and really manufacturing a lot of these things. But we're still going to flood the market with Chinese stuff, so it doesn't really matter what we do with the American-made stuff.
Yep. Because then they're still hitting a barrier because of the fact that the Chinese products are coming in at a whole lot cheaper. And then what would have balanced everything out with the tariffs is now being circumvented and then put in a 24-month moratorium, which is also ironic of the timing of why it was chosen for 24 months, right as this executive order came out when he first, really got into office.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it came out June of last year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things that really sparks thought in my mind is a quote, and I want to quote this directly from what Biden said with this, and it said, the passage of this resolution, and he's talking here about the resolution the bipartisan resolution that would have lifted his executive action and his moratorium, says, the passage of this resolution bets against American innovation. It would undermine these efforts and create deep uncertainty for American businesses and workers in the solar industry. Therefore, I am vetoing this resolution. So because placing tariffs on Chinese-made products that are the same as American-made products would harm American innovation, he's going to veto the resolution that would lift his moratorium.
I'm telling you, man, everything about this guy's plan is.
Was this was this a big gaffe? I mean, sincerely.
Literally, he's China 2.0. He
it's
himself
crazy.
is China 2.0.
It really is. It's crazy. I really don't understand how the logic of this even makes sense. He had passed this resolution after the Commerce Department had said that China's shipping these solar panels indirectly into the U.S. to circumvent the tariffs. Well, just so we don't have to worry about them shipping through other countries, we're going to lift the tariffs and impose a 24-month moratorium
instead of stopping them.
Yes, exactly.
Just give them a free ride.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to do it so it doesn't hurt American innovation, which would people to manufacture the same products to get it out to the American people in this industry that I'm forcing down the throats of the American population, regardless of what they want and what the economy wants. But it'll hurt American innovation. So I'm going to remove the tariffs on the Chinese imports. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Makes none. And you know what? This just goes to show what, again, another reason why the Biden administration had this is their plan all along. They don't want American manufacturing to come back. They want us to buy made in China products and then run it through American companies. That's it. They want us to go back to buying 3-cent slave-made t-shirts so that we can then wholesale them instead of putting Americans back to work and making great products.
Okay, so now the argument for American innovation makes sense a little bit, because essentially what in the context of that argument, the American innovation is taking advantage of the Chinese sweat labor that's overseas. We're getting in these solar panels and these projects in order to put them into finished products to put out to the American market, as opposed to establishing an American market that would not be based on slave labor.
Yeah, he wants to be third-party Amazon. That's what he wants us to be. Like, and what I mean by that, that's not a knock on Amazon. What I mean by that is like Shopify, all these other networks, right? The key to those websites is that I can buy certain products at a wholesale low value, put them up on a website, and then resell them. And so that was the first tech wave of innovation of online shopping, right? He is basically trying to take that model and say, oh, it's made in the US because the company's in the US.
Or it was a finished product in the US.
Correct.
The components were actually made outside the United States,
I mean,
of which we're seeing a massive issue with in the medication world and industry as well, because we're not able to get penicillins, we're not able to get aspirins, we're not able to get baby formula. So
same thing with chips. I mean, for the brief, they wanted to blame it originally on COVID, remember? And then they wanted to, then once the word got out, they were like, oh no, we need to do something to manufacture chips here in the US. The reality is because we had spent so much and put everything, almost everything from every car manufacturer to the computers, your phones, all those chips were made in Taiwan. But once we angered China, oh, we want to bring our money, we want to bring the chip manufacturing back here instead of solving the problem from the beginning here.
No, we should have just had it manufactured here to begin with.
Which is the same thing. Now that everything else has been exposed, they now are trying to push it through solar panels because that's the only way they can keep the flow in.
The audacity is, I mean, in all honesty, it's
the crookery.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the whole notion of American innovation isn't that something can be started from the ground and to a finished product, but that we have to outsource or insource components from across the entire world because we don't have the ability to create it ourselves. It's crazy. Americans are the people who have created everything by themselves. It was something that we came into an area, into our land that was bleak. It was there was nothing there. It was all uninhabited. It was unindustrial, anything. We created everything ourselves. But now we are so invested in other countries that we can't even do anything ourselves without having a crutch propping us up, essentially.
Yep.
It's the globalization and the market process with that is
well, and I will say this, it's
blatant
for me, it's not so much the globalization part that's the problem. It's the way that it's done. Okay. And what I mean,
it's a globalization for me.
What I mean by that is, right, when you look at, and I know this is not how fair trade under the model of fair trade works, but when you look at, different, like global trade has existed for a long periods of time, right? If you watch the History Channel, it talks about, we don't know how they did it, but some of the blues that were even in Egypt, the way that was made can only be found in America or Central America, right? So there have been trade routes even before recorded history.
You're talking about the indigo dye in the Aztecs.
Correct.
Yes.
There have been trade routes that existed beforehand. So for me, it's not necessarily the globalization that's the problem. It's how we are doing it with complete disrespect to our own people. You know what I mean? Like we're no longer trying to be innovative to the point to where it benefits the American people. We're trying to be innovative to the point to where it only benefits certain people. And we've now I don't even want to say politicized, but we've now allowed that corrosion into the highest office in the land by someone who is continuing to take advantage of that. Because now he's the person stroking the pen who's not trying to, who has no sense of what it means to truly be an American anymore. I mean, you can go
if he ever
did, right? That there's other thing. I was go back and look at some of the stuff that, you know, I mean, he did when he first got in the Senate. Like the man is a hypocritical liar.
Yeah.
Like he was for slavery. He was for all this other kind of stuff in the 70s, you know, but now the guy wants, oh, I want everyone to be happy. I want,
you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Like the Joe Biden of 2023 and the Joe Biden of 1976 would kill each other. Which just shows that the man has no principles.
Mm-hmm.
He only knows greed.
I mean, it's a family trait because he's definitely passed it down, and it's gone beyond just his direct lineage.
Like,
of which some of which we're hoping comes to light sooner rather than later.
That's scary. You know what happened?
Although I will say it's not just the Biden family that's guilty of this. It's literally every political instituted family across the entire board.
I will say this. One thing that now, and people didn't like it, and it cost him a re-election. But one thing I will always respect 41 for George H.W. Bush is the fact of he saw a time in American history to where he ran a campaign on not raising taxes. But based upon the time that we were in, coming out of the Cold War, he knew that the only thing that even seemed reasonable at the time to him to help the American people was to raise taxes. And he did it knowing that it was going to cost him his reelection. Now, granted, doing that instead of just waiting and them doing it when he didn't have a reelection to go for, destroyed him, and that's how we got Bill Clinton. But I'm
going to leave that topic all to its own there because there's so much to jump into.
But all I'm saying in that entire point,
and that's the reason why I didn't go into it.
Yeah. All I'm saying in that entire point is, love it or hate it, here's someone who valued their country more than themselves, and you don't see that in a politician anymore.
For the most part, yes.
For the most part.
Yeah, there are a few out there
that are fighting the good fight.
God save the Queen. That
are fighting the good fight. Yes. Who are sticking their neck out there for reasons most don't even understand because that has to take a toll on a person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, who would expect anything more? But anyway, with that in mind, like Biden's, we do require that you make sure that you go and hit the like button and the share button on all of our platforms. This is something that you are again required to do because we said so. We also require that you hit the subscribe button on anything that you do see us release any of our productions out on. I mean, the platforms that we do our shows with, just simply because of the fact that you have to listen to what we have to say, because if you don't, the Bidens are going to be the one to influence your thoughts and ideas. If you're not listening to Jamie and I, it's Joe Biden. So you have a very distinct duality there. You have Joe Biden and then you have conservative thought. So which one are you going to choose? So make sure you are hitting the subscribe button. And because of that duality, we also ask that you go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit that sponsor tab. That way, Jamie and I can continue to deliver your messaging to you. That way you will know how to fight the Biden regime, and we will eventually be able to counteract them and take them over and replace them. Although Jamie and I have sworn and upholded to be a lot more transparent and, forthcoming with a lot of that.
You know me, I'm booked since I was 12. Like Honest Abe, I can't tell a lie.
Well, speaking on that note, let's jump right into our conspiracy corner.
Speaking of lies,
well, I don't know if this is much of a lie.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the subject, not the subject itself, but the subject matter.
A little bit of that. So, in our conspiracy corner today, Buck has been really planting a bug in our ears with this, and he's been so persuasive with this. He's actually convinced us that Joe Biden, Joe Biden's son's Hunter Biden, his ex-stripper mistress, will actually have Hunter Biden in jail long before the Republicans do.
Look, I will always fight for men's rights, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, if I ever have a kid and and me and my wife split up, I'm living in the basement because I don't see how he doesn't go to jail. You know what I mean? There's very few.
He should have just joined the priesthood.
Like, I mean, there are very few people already who, make it out of custody battles on the man's side without having to do this. And now he's a high profile person.
Well, the thing about it is he's fighting custody to where he doesn't have to acknowledge her.
I get that.
It's kind of the reverse of any other side of it.
But it's still the same thing. Like, he's still going through the same system, right? And I mean, DNA test is going to prove it all.
Well, it's already been proven.
That's what I'm saying. Like, DNA test is going to prove it all. And after that, you're stuck. You know what I mean? There's not enough assets you can sell. There's not. There's not enough things he can do.
To that. So what we're talking about here is Hunter Biden's ex-stripper mistress has filed her attorney has filed a motion to have Hunter Biden arrested for essentially contempt of court, because he is not upholding what the court has ordered and is in as far as discovery. So in discovery, it is a period where both sides share information in a legal battle, to where you're able to really get a lot of evidence for your case for both sides. So both sides know what evidence is going to be introduced in the court. So because the Hunter Biden side has refused to even produce anything during this discovery period, even against court orders that says that he must provide it, usually that person goes to jail for not complying with the court order there. So that's what that's what his mistress has said. Look, he is saying that he's not going to comply with your orders. He's also claiming that he is a destitute person that's of no significance and is very ordinary, and his family name doesn't carry a lot of significance. So, again, a regular person. So, in any other instance, that regular person goes to jail until they comply with the court order.
There's a judge in Fulton County right now who's getting ready to lock up a movie star whose movie made $319 million this past weekend in its opening, and has him for $10,000 per month. Hunter Biden, in all sense of the words, is in more trouble than I think that him or his father will ever be able to get him out of.
Did you know he flew in on a private jet to this legal proceeding,
but he's an ordinary guy.
Of which the judge said that he must start attending?
But he's just an ordinary guy who can't afford $20,000 to take care of his own kid. Now I've been fighting one side of this right now because that's an issue that's very important to me. But at the same time, what deadbeat, especially that wealthy, is not going to take care of their kid?
Well, according to him, he has had to sell off his Porsche. He had to sleep on a cot inside of his dad's room while his dad was touring Ireland. So he had to sleep inside of his dad's room on a cot while his dad was touring Ireland there.
At his dad's mansion?
No. While he was on a presidential visit of Ireland. he had to sleep on a cot throughout the entire time.
I don't understand.
In his dad's room. He's only flown on Air Force One once.
I don't understand. Wait. Why did you just give everybody your dad's name? Like,
because it was a family visit, or according to essentially MRA laws, you're not allowed to use federal funding for family functions. And since that was a family visit, he was essentially staying in his father's room, which was still paid for by taxpayers, on a cot inside of his inside of his dad's room, which still in of itself is a violation of federal laws there. So
how are you 40 years old and you still trying? You can't. Anyway, I don't even want to get into that. That's off topic, but I just have so many questions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's
so much there. There's so much there. Like, there's so much there.
Yes. But so because he has refused to disclose his assets and his income, that is the reason why his mistress has filed for him to essentially go to jail for contempt of court. And they're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that this goes forward, because was it of the $20,000 that he had been required to pay for his monthly child support, Hunter has come out and said, I want to reduce that amount of payment because I am a financially unstable individual and I can't afford $20,000 a month for it. So his mistress has said that not only can you pay for this, but I believe that you can pay for this so much that I am actually going to use part of that $20,000 a month that you're supposed to be paying me to pay my legal fees. So they have also filed for additionally to have legal fees covered as well, because that would harm the child, because she is having to use that $20,000 a month to cover legal fees. So that was an ingenious little maneuver there. I will say that. In addition to that, part of that lawsuit, it also, or part of this whole proceeding there, is that they have legally filed to have the child's name changed from Roberts to Biden, so that his daughter can take advantage of the prestigious family name, of which Hunter has come out and said, there is no prestige to my family name.
Just international villain and presidential father.
And all of the millions of dollars that are being paid out to Bidens across the country. But there's no prestige there. There's no advantage to be taken of that.
Honestly, I was thinking about a lot right then, and the only thing that it ended with was it's really time to just like go live in the woods and set up a villa. Like, cause like you can see it crashing, right? Like you see what I see, right? Like, you know, like, how
can you defend any of that?
You can't defend any of that. And this is what's running the country right now. Like, so you see the direction and you're like, yeah, no, it's just time to go to the woods and go ahead and start getting set up. We can beat the curve, right? You know what I mean? We'll be 2 standard deviations ahead of everybody else if we start now.
There's some good places. So with that, we always close out with a quick reminder to our subservient viewers out there that they do hit the like button and the share button on any of the productions that we produce and release on any of our platforms, as well as hit that subscribe button. That way you will never miss out on anything that Jamie and I have to say. You will always get our ideas, our opinions, and your opinions that you can put out into society furthermore, and really change the world from our perspective. We also want to bring up that you can go to our website at conservativestalk.org and become a sponsor today, because that will continue to allow Jamie and I to make these productions, and will eventually allow him and I to be able to take over the world and really institute a lot of these policies and procedures and ideas, thoughts, and opinions that we believe would correct every course of action across the entire country. So we also like to take a moment to thank our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So make sure you are looking for Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First and Veterans for Trump and their media arm, Vet Voice. So make sure you are looking for Vet Voice on every major social media platform. So, Jamie, with that, how about giving us your final thoughts?
We are.
There's a lot with that one.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about it. There's so much to go on. You know, this is another reason why I say continue to stay involved. Speaking of involvement, don't forget June 9th and 10th, primarily down in Columbus, Georgia, is the state convention for GAGOP. A lot of things going to be happening there. A lot of major things going to be happening there.
Big time.
So even if you are not a delegate or alternate, it'd be great for you to attend, meet some people, see the process, see how it all comes together across the state. And then, you know, I'm just going to end that with, like we used to say before, if you have any intentions on ever running for office, feel free to reach out, go to conservativestalk.org and click on the contact and just shoot us a little message with your information and what state and city or county and district that you live in. And, you know, we'll contact you and lend you some support.
Yeah, we'll get you in touch with the people that you need to know on the ground to be able to mount an effective run in any area that you are interested in doing so.
And apparently we stretch all the way into Canada, but we don't operate there. We operate in the United States of America.
So far. So, or at least until we're able to go our global conquest.
That's valid, but I'm not ready to read Canadian law that well.
By the time we do our global conquest, it'll be American law.
I'm with it. Nope. No,
you already agreed. I'm editing.
Just brought in NAFTA.
I'm editing that part out. So as always, this is Conservative Talk, and we will be seeing you soon.